Hello, everyone. Welcome back to First Listen Media. Today, we are with a member of one of my favorite bands, Project 86. What is up, dude?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I know that we're many time zones apart, but it's truly I'm truly thankful that you had me on, brother.
Dude, I'm grateful you guys are here. Well, you're here because, well, like I mentioned before, I've been a huge fan for a long time. Speaking of a long time, where
Thanks
did
so
this
much,
band
man.
begin?
Well, the band was founded and still home base is Orange County, California, which is between LA and San Diego. And we started in in 1996 was the official start of the band. So many years ago.
Damn, I was born in '97, so like that was like a year before I was born.
Yeah, we've been doing this a while, man. I started when I was like 4, so I think I have a little bit left in the tank, just a little bit.
Where did you meet all your band members? Like, how did this band form?
Well, the band was born out of basically the Southern California heavy music scene, the hardcore scene, basically. Um, really met all the guys that ended up playing in this band, and we've had a few folks travel through the Project 86 camp over the years, but there was a very vibrant scene in Southern California in the 90s, and there were many bands that were birthed out of that scene, and we were one of them.
What a great time to make music, I swear.
Yeah, the 90s was very much like a golden era for the music industry itself, for certain. And we were, yeah, really fortunate to be born into that time in history, basically. And when the band started, uh, it wasn't as prominent or as common as it has become to play music or to attempt to play music professionally. And so I remember just when we were first putting the band together, telling friends and family and acquaintances that I played in a band, and their eyes would get wide and say, "Wow, how do you do that?" It was so uncommon and impressive to just have a band back then. So yeah, I've been able to endure a lot of eras of the music industry and culture in doing this thing for a career.
I mean, honestly, everything I've heard right now from like your first album to the latest, I've loved it. I really can't get enough personally.
Right on, man. Thanks so much. Yeah, we're on album 11 now, and this is going to be the final chapter. So, partnering with the fans one last time, and really trying to wring this thing out for all it's worth. I was telling you before we hopped on the interview, this may end up being like a 5-year album cycle with all the music and all of the additional pieces of media that we're working on putting out. So it's been a pretty wild ride thus far, and we have more coming down the pipe. We keep adding more EPs and books and all kinds of things to our final chapter campaign.
Man, I can't wait to see how everything unfolds because personally, like I know all good things must come to an end. I know that. But at the same time, it's like I want this to go on for as long as it possibly can.
Well, that's the thing, is the fans have a lot of control over that. So as long as people continue supporting, pre-ordering and backing and funding the various aspects of this album and everything that it contains, the sky's the limit, man. I'm just chuckling because when we started this thing a few months back, if you would have told me that we would be where we are now in terms of all of the music, and I have 2 books that are going to be on the table. Well, the second book is a part of a stretch goal run that we're going to be announcing this next week. So there's just a lot. It's a lot of work, but it's all really fun. And we have a Patreon community surrounding the final chapter campaign as well. That's just patreon.com/P8625. Really cool community of people who are supporting the band. We've got podcasts and contests and polls, and everybody's participating in how this thing shapes up. So it's a really interactive, kind of a utopia place. That's something I've always dreamed of, about having a community off of social media that's just direct with the fans and just the biggest supporters being a part of that.
That's amazing. And I love how the community just comes together for that. In my eyes, that's
Yeah.
just beautiful.
Yeah, it's been an incredible ride so far, man.
Speaking of like everything involving the band, where did the band name come from?
I think when we were trying to think of a band name, which is the most difficult thing that you can do in putting an actual band together, because you will be forever, and this is just something sort of karmic in the universe, you will be forever defined by the name of your band, right? So the era that we started in, again, like the late 90s, it was very cool to have like a word and a number. that was something that a few bands that we were close to did. And so we're like, okay, yeah, let's do the word with the number thing. And so initially we were referring to the band as just the project. And I was trying to think of a good number that had a little bit of meaning to it and sounded good when you say it, maybe an air of I don't know, mystery, maybe that's a bad word, but causes you to wonder, you know, what's the band name mean, or where does it come from? And so I thought of the number 86, and that's when you remove something or reject it or throw it out. Project 86 is the idea of being removed or separated from the group. We were applying that to mean that, you know, we are going to pursue our own unique sort of niche or sound inside the heavy music space. Accepted or rejected, we were going to embrace what our identity was and is as a band. And so we felt like that was a good twist on the number 86.
That's great. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to process that because I've always loved getting these unique responses about the names, and this has been by far one of my most favorites.
That's cool, man. Thank you so much.
Of course. And like the diversity in the sound and about what you said about the whole rejection thing, it all fits really well because your sound is very unique. It's like even the instruments are unique.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. I think that was something that was very intentional in the very beginning, or at least very early on in the band. It was kind of birthed out of early trial and error. I think when we first started as a band, you know, we were really struggling to figure out what that unique sound was. And even myself as a vocalist, just trying to figure out, you know, what my voice was. And, you know, the bands that last, we learned this very early on, are the ones that we love are the ones that had their own sound. And so that was always a goal for us, is to have, you know, no matter how commercially successful the band was, to have people respond to the music by saying, you know what, there's no one that sounds like Project 86. And hopefully that's still the case, you know, 25 some odd years later. And again, I don't say that, you know, in any sort of, you know, arrogant kind of way. I'm just trying to say that we were very intentional about trying to develop that very early on.
Yeah. And honestly, from what I've heard, I have not heard a single band that is similar to your style. So I think it has paid off. And I think it's lasted definitely for that 25-year duration.
Yeah, and it was as much as we were intentional about it, it was still, you know, I felt like our second record was really, Drawing Black Lines was really the moment where, okay, you know, we found our own unique thing, our unique space inside of all the other heavy music that was out there. And from that point forward, it was part of our identity again, is to have that sound.
For sure. And speaking of like the music and the sound, there is a few songs I really want to know like the lyrical process behind, which are actually on that album behind me. One of my favorite albums ever written, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. The first song I would like to know about is Fall Goliath Fall.
Yeah, wrote that song. It was one of my favorite moments really in the history of the band. Was writing that song, both lyrically and the music. It just came together in such a special way. And right when we were finished writing the instrumentation, just knew that it was a special track. It just had a catchiness to it that we knew that people were going to resonate with. And the lyrical theme matches the musical, the sonic identity of the song. It's just this idea of being in that moment poised for a confrontation or a battle and needing to summon otherworldly strength in order to overcome a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, which is the whole Goliath element. David and Goliath, obviously it's from the Bible, but we meant it not to be a literal take on the biblical story, but more an anthem for anyone who's facing a circumstance where they are the underdog in any situation in life. And so just a song that was inspired by, the idea of conquering an obstacle or a foe or an adversary that was bigger than you were, and finding otherworldly strength outside of yourself to overcome whatever that thing is that's in front of you.
I love that response so much, because I felt that while I was listening to it, because I do relate to that on a very high level. So when I heard Fall Goliath Fall, I had that vibe. I just wanted to make sure, I just wanted to ask about it, because that song is one of my favorites that I've ever heard in my life. So I'm so glad I heard the process behind that one. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Yeah, man. Of course.
If it'll be okay, could we actually go through most of the album? Because all these songs to me are pretty sentimental, and I love playing them. If you have the time, I mean.
Yeah, man, of course.
All right,
yeah.
Let's go through.
Tell me the songs that you want to know about.
All right. Off the Grid.
Okay, so that was a song about, using a metaphor to describe just what I was feeling inside of my own band at that moment. The band was going through a sense of rebirth and basically starting over in many ways. And creatively speaking, if you do the same thing for a long period of time, sometimes you can inadvertently kind of build walls around yourself. And so Wait for the Siren, it's a very meaningful album for me because of that reason. It was the rebirth of the band. And the idea in my mind is just escaping, a prison sentence that was of your own creation, and just finding a new sense of peace and joy, and mostly freedom inside of what you are doing creatively.
That is very important as well, because if you like the freedom, then what's the point of creating?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right. The next song I would like to hear about would be Defector.
Yeah, that's a song that's just about the idea of being prepared for your own mortality. And at the time that I wrote the song, I think it was probably one of the first moments as an adult person where I started thinking about my life less as, a child or a 20-something, and more as someone who's an adult with, a ticking timer, like every other human being on this earth. Just looking at mortality from the perspective of being prepared for the fact that this ride could end at any moment, not just the ride of music, but just the ride of being, on this side of eternity, so to speak, in this skin, this mortal shell. So it's just a conversation with myself, basically, and being prepared that at any moment, my number could get pulled or called.
That's something we all face, and that's also why I'm glad I asked about that, because I definitely picked up on some of that, because I look at myself like that every day. Like, when's my time going to come? We don't live forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that was
exactly.
a very good message in that song.
Exactly.
The next song I'd like to know about is Above the Desert Sea.
Above the Desert Sea is one of my favorite songs lyrically on the album. I was writing about the story of Abraham and Isaac, the ancient story of being willing to sacrifice your only son. And I wanted to write the song from the perspective of Isaac, basically. It's kind of a conversation between the dad and the son. And what was the question was, and this is drawn largely as well from the book Fear and Trembling by Soren Kierkegaard. So it's, my spin on it was, Isaac must have been really confused and terrified, and so I wanted to examine things from his perspective. And then the end of the song is basically both father and son coming to the same conclusion. To trust is to obey. It's the idea that, we may not understand everything that's waiting on the other side of trusting, whether it's higher power, God, or another human being, but to trust is to obey.
Yeah. And honestly, the way you worded the song was beautiful start to finish.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I actually listened to this whole album again today. Like, it's just, the album to me is also very symbolic because it's helped me through some stuff as well. Hence why when I started this up, I'm like, I want to work with these guys eventually. I really do. And when I found out, when I saw last album, I'm like, I gotta speed this up. Because I was worried I wouldn't have a chance to actually work with you guys.
And here we are, my man.
I know, right? It's like, ta-da! The final song I'm going to ask about is, let me open up the album. My phone just went dumb for a second. I'm going to ask about...
No worries.
Damn. There's so many more I want to ask about, but I'm just trying to limit myself here. Let's see. Avalantia.
Avalantia,
my bad.
This is about really, this is a very personal song for me about a friendship that emerged many years ago out of one of the most difficult times of my life. And there was a moment really in time where I looked all around me and I saw that I was surrounded by people who really didn't care about me. And this happens, I guess, if you achieve anything in life, in any sphere of influence or any industry, the higher you go, the more you seem to be surrounded by people who want something from you, right? And I really looked around and had to reevaluate a lot of the relationships in my life. And there was one friendship and one friend who really helped me make difficult decisions, but really was someone who was an example of a genuine friend during a time of redefining my relationships in my life. I really had this very short period of time where I had to cut off a lot of relationships. And a lot of these were born out of my experiences in the music industry. And so the song, for lack of a better way to put it, is about the difference between, quote unquote, fake friends and genuine ones.
That's amazing. Because I've gone through a similar situation. That's actually what got me into this. Was more like a recovery thing, but it was still the same thing. Like, I had to get rid of a lot of people because I found that they didn't really want anything good to do with me. They just wanted to use me. So I can definitely relate to that aspect.
Yeah, I think it's a common thing, especially once you reach a certain age. I think we tend to evaluate our relationships by different criteria when we're younger, when we're in our 20s, and then when we sort of reach real adulthood at whatever age, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, whatever. You start realizing that there are very few people in this world that actually genuinely care for you. And so you have to covet, you have to protect those relationships and cultivate those relationships and invest in those relationships.
Definitely.
So that's a major theme in the music too, is loyalty and trust and genuine relationships versus disingenuous ones.
Yeah, and I have a few friends like that who are genuine as hell, and all they want is for me to succeed with this. So it's like those friendships I'm keeping and protecting at all costs. Everyone else, I'm just like, see ya.
That's
So,
amazing, man.
yeah. When I actually found out I was working with you, they were psyched as hell because they know how much of a fan I am. So like, we're so happy for you, dude. And I'm
That's
just
cool, man.
yeah.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you supporting the band for however many years now. It looks like almost 10 years.
Yeah,
so it's just really cool, especially during this chapter of the band, to be able to connect with so many people individually that have supported this thing for so long. It's just, that's one of the things that's made this so incredible in general at this stage of the game, if that makes sense.
It does. It definitely does. And I'm glad I've been around for this long as a fan because this is some of the best music I've ever heard in my life, if I'm being totally honest.
Thanks,
And
man.
speaking of the music, I want to learn about the album art. Like, what inspired all the detail work that went into this? Like, you got the planes on the front, you got the map, the battle scene. Like, what inspired all this art? I love it.
We were really just searching through a lot of archival art, a lot of propaganda art, a lot of war art from the first two world wars. That's what inspired all of it. I mean, that's kind of the theme of the album, Wait for the Siren. It's basically being poised for the moment before battle, you know, and having a sense of readiness and preparedness, and finding that sense of courage to confront any enemy that stands in your path or any obstacle, like I said. And so we felt like, you know, since it's an album that is essentially about battle or war, it would be appropriate to seek out some sort of imagery that was more historic in nature, because I wrote a lot of you know, past events, past wars and battles on this album.
The best answer I've heard in a while. I love that it's all about like the battles, the confrontations, the past, and I feel like the images from that time period would have worked perfectly. So I'm really glad you guys actually used those. Because I recognized right away. I'm like, I saw the warplane. I'm like, this is definitely like World War II, World War One era.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a big history buff, so I've loved the planes in that era. So I'm like, okay, they chose a lot of good stuff for this. Who would you love to collaborate with, whether it be opening act or in a recording studio?
Collaboration, you mean like songwriting?
That, yes.
That's a great question. You know, my list of artists that I listen to changes on like a weekly basis in terms of playlists and genres of music, and if you were to ask me that question 6 months ago, it would probably be a different answer than right now. I listen to a lot of electronic music, believe it or not, and there are a few different DJs and folks that are producers in that space that I really admire and look up to. One of those guys is a producer and DJ named Flume, and I think that would be really interesting to collaborate and to do a vocal on a track that he produced. I think that would be really killer.
That would be amazing. I listen to a lot of electronic as well, like Deadmau5, Daft Punk. Let's see what else. Avicii back when he was alive. I used to swamp myself in electro like all the time.
Yeah, it's probably next to hip hop, probably my second favorite genre of music. And there's so much, just like hip hop, there's so much diversity within the genre itself, subgenres and the like. I love that with digital music, it's endless in terms of the sounds. And if you can't find a sound that you like that someone else made, you can make your own synth, sample your own stuff. In fact, I find that a lot of the people that I enjoy listening to the most in terms of artists that are in that space create their own sounds. And so that's just something that I'm super inspired by and into, and I want to explore a little bit on the final Project 86 album as well.
It is interesting, and I totally agree with what you said too, because it's so diverse and people make their own sounds all the time. Each person could have a completely different style than the last, and it's so like awesome to see that different like that style, a unique style from each person, because you never know what you're going to find.
Totally.
All right. My next question is, what is the best piece of advice you could give to your fellow musicians and your listeners?
Best piece of advice, man, that's pretty broad. Let's see here. There are probably many pieces of advice. I have to think of one that I would put above the others. I think it's most important if you're in a space of creating something, whether it's for public consumption or just personal edification, to not be afraid to try new things. That's how you achieve something that no one else has done before. And when you give yourself the freedom to experiment and not self-edit, it's so easy when you're trying something new, or when you're early on in an endeavor to, go 2 or 3 inches forward in attempting to do something and then go, oh, that just sucks, and give up. Really, everything that you try that's new is going to suck at first, but the more you practice and the more you learn about your craft and the more you hone your skills, the better you get at it. So stick with it. Give yourself the freedom to try new things, and don't be too hard on yourself when you are attempting to push through a new creative boundary, so to speak.
Like the old saying goes, you gotta suck before you get good.
Yeah, definitely.
My final question for the night is, do you have any questions for me?
Do you have a favorite Project 86 song?
Fall Goliath Fall is my favorite.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorites too, from the history of the band, for sure. Like I said, that was a very important moment for me personally, and in the history of Project 86 was just when we actually wrote that song. I was just telling a story to a close family member the other day about how that song was placed via Jim Nance's monologue on the second round of I believe it was the 2013 NCAA men's basketball tournament, March Madness. And so I had grown up watching the tournament my entire life as a basketball player and fan as a kid. And when we found out the song was getting picked up by them, the obvious question was, I wonder where the song will be played. Maybe that we'll hear like 5 seconds of it, cutting to commercial break. And it turned out they used the song for like the most important introduction of the most watched segment. It was like the theme song of the entire segment for that evening. And the announcer for the segment, the lead announcer, did this whole poem monologue about David and Goliath, for which they ended the segment by flashing the lyrics on the screen, "Fall, Goliath, fall," and then playing our song. So it was like a huge moment. It was really cool for me personally, and just a defining, I guess, just if I were to look back on my music career, that would be one of my favorite memories, is just having the song placed, in March Madness on the NCAA men's basketball tournament.
Dude, that's absolutely insane. That must have been like the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool. Well, I appreciate the time, man, and thanks for having me. Please continue to support. I gotta plug everything that's going on with the album. You can visit us at project86.com. We're doing all kinds of contests and partnering with the fans and doing giveaways and polls. And like I mentioned, we have a very vibrant Patreon community at patreon.com/ project8625. And if you go to project86.com, just go to the homepage and you can find out more details on how you can pre-order the new album, the forthcoming final album from P86, on vinyl, on cassette, on CD, digitally, and so much more. Appreciate you guys so much. And thanks for having me, Zach.
I will have to look into getting that vinyl because I'm a huge collector of that.
We have, I think, 5 different versions of the vinyl up on the pre-order store.
I will have to check that out very, very soon.
So I'll get you the link and you can post it as a part of the show notes here.
I will definitely do that. And before we wrap up, do you have any other questions you want to ask me before we end this?
I think that's it, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Dude, thank you, man. Like, this has been dream come true. Like, I've been waiting so long for a moment like this. So honestly, I am happier as I ever could be. Like, this has made my day.
Oh, that's amazing, man. And again, happy holidays, and stay healthy, stay safe. And once again, appreciate the time, man.
Likewise, this has been great. And same to you, man. Have a great holiday and a happy new year.
All right, Zach, take care.
All right, take care.